Bruce, we've come down here today to Canvey Island to the Lobster Smack.
And we have great expectations of what's going to occur.
We certainly do. Charles Dickens did not mention the Lobster Smack.
And they did not build the Channel Tunnel so that they could talk to Charles Dickens.
No, they didn't.
They built it to talk to Proust and people like that.
Exactly.
We won't go there.
So we come down here today to, I think it's fair to say, if he can just shut up for a minute, right, interview a genuine legend of rock.
He's sitting just right next door. Lobsterholics Anonymous.
You've heard him already, folks, I think.
We are in the Lobster
Smack.
Smack.
Not shack. We're in the Lobster Smack.
Smack.
And, well, I mean, the chap who's going to talk to you today on Psycho, Schizo, Espresso has, you know, influenced everyone from Paul Weller to Joe Strummer. I think Elton John called him a genius.
Yeah.
And he was the lead guitarist, of course, in a very famous pub rock band, although we don't really know what pub rock means, do we?
No, and we also don't know what R&B means anymore, because it's a meaningless term for people who talk a lot. Before it was rhythm and blues, and the Feelgood, Dr Feelgood with Wilko Johnson was it.
That's him.
That's him.
Should we get him on?
Yeah.
Wilko, welcome to Psycho, Schizo, Espresso, mate. So you're singing better now than you was, what, back in the 80s, you say? Well, why is that then?
Of course, it's what I'm saying. It's relaxing.
It relaxes. I mean, in some ways, yes. I mean, obviously, at the age of 63, your voice is not exactly the same as it was when you were 25.
Right.
But I spent most of my years from, 20 to 30 semi-knackered. Because of the schedule we used to do. I mean, when I first joined Maiden, we did 8 shows on, 1 day off, 7 shows on, 1 day off, 6 shows on, 1 day off. Oh. And we continued to try and do that for like 8 months. And lo and behold, guess what happened? We were in Spain and all of a sudden I got laryngitis and we had to cancel 7 days of shows. But then it all started again. And I sort of put my foot down in the end and said, look, you do realise that this is an actual voice you're talking about. You cannot do this. It's not a machine. And we settled on a compromise for the next 2.5 years of continuous touring. We do 5 days on, 1 day off, 4 days on, 1 day off.
That's a lot of touring.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But of course the trouble was you're always on the ragged edge, and I hadn't figured out Macho Man, I really go deaf for a living, with my ears and everything. And suddenly I put earplugs in and I went, holy wow, mackerel, cow, whatever.
Yeah. Shit.
Yeah.
There's a first swear word. There's a first swear word of the day.
But I mean, I suddenly could realise when people were in tune and out of tune and stuff, including me. And I was gobsmacked. I was like, wow, why didn't I do this years before? And it's like a macho thing.
Yeah.
It's like, all that crap, if it's too loud, you're too old. You're supposed to be the audience, they're going to get it,
You've
not
only
you.
taken somebody to come up and explain that to you, what you were doing. And if you'd have been doing that when you were younger and all that, then you would have been singing better. But you found that.
So you were singing out of tune for 20 years?
Partially, at least partially, yeah.
You didn't do bad out of it.
Yeah, well,
They probably don't like you're singing into.
But you don't know, because you're so in the moment when you go on it and all that. I mean, I realised when I couldn't hear the crowd, put earplugs in, you can't hear the crowd. Not the same way as you used to. And at first it was weird. I was just like, oh no, I don't know if I can do this. This is weird. And then suddenly I thought, no, I really like this. Because I can look at them and I can see when they're into it. And I can feel when they're really into it. But it doesn't interfere with my control over my performance, Because the reason they're going to get really into it more is because I'm delivering, hopefully, what they want to hear, It's like...
no, it's horrible. I mean, I get that now. Sometimes I think back to the 70s and that, and I think, you're doing those gigs, and all these things I didn't know like that. And I wish I'd known them then, because it would just been a lot better.
Yeah. But things were... I mean, again, now, the amount of equipment, or certainly during the 80s and 90s, the amount of gear that people used to cart around on stage and the volume levels that were possible were way, way more. I mean, I saw Emerson, Lake and Palmer at Woodstock on the telly. You know, there's a documentary about it. And I'm looking at the gear they've got on stage. I mean, you know, it was like the whole band fitted basically in my living room, and my living room ain't that big. And it was just like, wow, that was a whole different era when you really barely needed monitors to an extent.
Years ago, I lived in Wivenhoe in Essex, and I lived next door to the brother. His name was Ron, of the saxophonist in the Blockheads.
Oh, Davey Payne.
Davey Payne, yeah.
Yeah, oh man.
And Ron, we were chatting one night in a pub, and he said that Ian Dury was no doubt he was a genius, but he was probably the most disagreeable bloke you could ever wish to meet in your life.
Ian.
But he was a genius.
Yeah, I'd absolutely go along with that. I mean,
Yeah.
my admiration for him is boundless, and love for him. And I mean, all the audiences, but if he had one drink too many, which is usually one, he could be the most. Oh dear, he could be obnoxious.
Yeah,
he would just pick on strangers standing next to him in the bar and start really insulting them.
Yeah.
Really, I think it was a thing he had that he couldn't really believe anybody loved him.
Yeah,
because he'd grown up like as a cripple and that, and he'd. I mean, I remember when I first joined the band, and he was telling me about when he was a kid, right? And he'd got a leg iron and everything.
Yeah.
And he said he used to walk along, people would stare at him in the street, right? And he hated it. You know, it's horrible. People staring at him, and then he got famous.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're in an airport or somewhere, and people are all staring at him because he's Ian Dury. Yeah. But he felt the same feeling he'd felt when he was a kid. So we had to kind of hide him away because he couldn't stand it. Because so the guy had suffered a lot. And when he had his moments, God, he was a devil.
That sounds like your story that your professor gave you of people that, people are staring at my shoes.
Yeah, it's like I had a professor years ago, Wilko. Bruce is right, and we were doing a clinical psychology module, and he said to me, well, there were 7 of us in the class, and we all turned up for class, and he was going to give us a lesson in delusions, right? And we all turned up, and we're expecting to sit down in a classroom, and he said, you're not going to have a proper lecture today. He said, I'm going to give you a practical lesson about delusions. And he gave us all, there were 7 of us, he gave us all an envelope, right? And he said, in this envelope, I've made up a custom-made delusion just for you, right? And we all had different ones, and they were in a sealed envelope. And he said, your job, all of you, he said, you've got to go out, leave the class, and you got to go out into the university, into the town, and he says, your job is to find evidence that this delusion that I've made up for you is true, right? So it's fantastic, we're going to get off class and all this. So we've all gone out, and I've opened my one up, and it was people are laughing at your shoes, right? That's what it was. He just made it up, it was bollocks. Yeah. People are laughing at your shoes. So my job was to find evidence for it. So I thought, okay. So I'll never forget it. I went into a cafe and I've ordered a coffee, and there's a group of girls over there, I didn't know who they were. They were just chatting away, laughing and joking and all that. And one of them told a joke. And they all laughed. And one of the girls, just as she laughed, turned over and looked at my shoes. And I thought, right, there's evidence, tick that one off. And my job was to find evidence this whole course of a day. After about 3 hours of this, I was absolutely convinced that this was right. People were actually laughing. Even though I knew he just made it up, I was convinced it was right.
Hang on, let's have a look.
Yeah. I didn't have pink DMs on it. And it's true. And once you have that kind of belief, what Bruce was saying, when you have that belief, it's so hard to shake it. And that's what Ian Ian would have had.
Oh, yeah,
Even though it was even though it was rubbish.
I know, but it was like, I mean, there was huge dark areas in Ian's mind, and
one of the reasons
when I
why I was
first
so creative.
joined the band, there was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months before we were due to go on the road. And I'm sort of talking to him, and as he's talking, he's got his paper in front of his pencil, and he's like drawing squares and diagrams about, right, so next month we're going to, and after a while I said to him, "You're shitting yourself," and Ian said, yeah, I am. And he was terrified. I mean, he used to get terribly stage fright.
Right.
And like that. And yet, people loved him so much.
Yeah.
I mean, you could feel it when you walked on stage. People really loved him, you know. Whatever stupid thing he said, they would love him, But he was terrified.
What were you like years ago? I mean, did you get stage fright at all?
Oh yeah,
Did you?
In the early days,
Right.
with Feelgood, you just I don't know, it's just so weird. I don't get it at all now. That was great about the Blockheads, because joining I was in the rhythm section.
Yeah.
And the fantastic.
And there was quite a few of them
What a
as well,
great
weren't
rhythm
there?
Section,
So,
Charlie Charles and Normal
That's
Watt.
right. Yeah.
And I'm just back there playing rhythm, right?
Yeah.
Ian's out the front. He's got all the stage fright. He's got to worry about it. So that was great.
Yeah.
I don't get it now.
Yeah.
But it's weird. It can paralyse you.
Well, it's a lot of energy, isn't it? I suppose if you're playing and you're...
really, it's just so stupid. It can, me, I used to go all quiet and, you think, what's the matter? You're going to walk onto a stage in front of a whole load of people who've paid good money to come and see you. So they're not going to start throwing things at you, but you're terrified.
Yeah.
I always thought that audiences developed a sort of a bit of a theory about audiences, that you couldn't show vulnerability to an audience because of that. They paid good money. They didn't pay good money to see you screw up. And they rip you to shreds.
Well, certainly.
If you turn around and go, I'm just going to be so self-indulgent, I just feel really shit tonight, and I'm just going to do a terrible performance, but hey, that's just the way I feel. They're not going to forgive.
They don't
forgive you for that.
No, that's not the arrangement. The arrangement is these people have paid their money to come and see you, and what they've paid to see is you doing your thing. Real good, and any other consideration or anything like that, I really have no interest in them. But it is stage fright.
Bruce, when you go on
stage...
Do
you think they're all looking at you and going, what an idiot, and no, they're not. They come to enjoy the show because they love your band.
When you go on stage, Bruce, and it's the same question for you, Wilko, like now, is it like a case, how long does it, so obviously you have good gigs and you have bad gigs, and you can tell when a gig's going well, but can you tell pretty quick from the crowd when it's going to be a belter and when it's going to go, not so good?
In the old days, yes, because reactions were a lot more varied.
Yeah.
When you're on the way, I mean, now we go out to sell like 30,000 people.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's true.
And you're there for 30,000 people, and they all go, "Wah!"
Yeah.
And so it's actually the ball's in your court. It's up to you to cock it up.
Yeah.
Because it's already happened for them. Yeah. So really, it becomes an internal thing because you know that what you're putting out there sounds great. So I always used to think it was weird in a club. Small gig, pub gig, whatever. Yeah. You do your stuff, and people will be right in your face. Yeah. And you could smell them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And everything. And you think, oh, what a great gig! Wow! And people would at the end of it, they would say, oh, what a great gig! Yeah. And then sometimes you'd make some crappy cassette recording of it, and you listen back, and you go. fucking hell, it's awful.
Yeah.
Right? That's terrible. It's out of tune, it's out of time, it's everything else. But everybody in that pub had a great time.
Yeah.
Right?
No, because the thing is, you may listen to it like that, and you know, obviously you can hear all the shortcomings like that, but that ain't what gets across.
Yeah.
You know, I remember that, when the Feelgoods first started, we used to play at a local place in Southend called the Esplanade. It's just a pub gig, really.
Yeah.
And there was a guy then. This is 1972 or something. The guy then, that a friend of ours, he had a portable cassette recorder, which is an unusual thing.
Yeah.
And he made several tapes of us playing there. And then in more recent years, I got them. Now, at that time, that was at the time, doing that thing regularly, I suddenly thought, I'll tell you what, this band can do something. I thought we got something. This was absolutely different from what everyone else was doing. And I'm thinking, I'll tell you what, I think we can do it.
Yeah.
And then, but years went by, and then I got some copies of these cassettes that this guy had made, and they are awful. There's all of that stuff like out of tune. There's long pauses in between numbers when we're all arguing about what to do, and it really sounds rough. And I cannot imagine why I thought that it's got something, and yet I think what I was feeling was the spirit of it. Yeah, you know.
But that's what comes. Okay, in small places, it's the spirit of it is more important than the technical. But as places get bigger, so now you suddenly play into a theatre. Well, the person who's sat in 4,000, he's sat at the back. He or she is sat at the back, and you come on and you play like you played in a pub, and they're going to start walking out because they're going, This is rubbish. Doesn't sound any good at all. It's got to be better, and the bigger the place, the more perfect has got to be the performance. It's an irony. You would imagine it was the other way round.
Yeah. What I'm interested in is the trajectory. So, Wilko, you'd have gone, so you went from, Feelgood were basically a pub band when you started off. Yeah. And there was a trajectory where you went from pub band to playing, like your Hammersmith Odeons.
The thing was that we were just playing like around here, around Southend, for a couple of years. And eventually somebody told us about this there's this scene in London called pub rock. Right?
Yeah.
And what they were saying, what it was a lot of good musicians, named musicians and things like that, they're playing in these gigs, right? And it's really going down. People are going to pubs to see good and there were all kinds of bands playing. There was jazz, there was country, there was rock and roll and all that. And this scene was really buzzing. And they people told us, man, you should go up there and play up there. And so, which we decided to do. And I remember going out, it was me and my brother, Lee Brillo. So just 3 or 4 of us, we went up to a pub called I don't know, it's down Finchley Road somewhere. And it was going to be...
wasn't the Brecknock, was it?
Not the Brecknock, no. Further to...
Whatever. Okay, never mind.
Anyway, it's
one of those pubs.
They say that this is going to be it's the top band in this pub rock scene.
Hope and Anchor?
Further out of town.
Further out of town.
And we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll get there. My mind's going, and I keep talking.
So there's this band on, and they're the top band, of this pub rock. And they were called Ducks Deluxe.
Oh my God!
And
I remember Ducks Deluxe.
So we go into this room, right? And the Ducks Deluxe room. I'm standing next to my brother, and I remember saying, "If these guys are the top band, we got it made."
Yeah,
and that's what it was. We come into that scene. It was already
right.
And we got our whole stuff worked out. The whole image and what way we would do it.
Yeah.
Boom. And we just got
that
very...
must have been a good moment.
We used to pack out these places all over London.
Yeah. The thing about that, funny you should talk about Ducks Deluxe, because Ducks Deluxe came to play, I was at posh boarding school, right? So they came to play my boarding school because the bass player of Ducks Deluxe, Ox Garvey, Right.
Nick Garvey.
Nick Garvey. His nickname at school was Ox because he was a big lump, right? And used to play rugby, I think, and so he was Ox Garvey. But Nick Garvey went to my school. So he came back and did a gig there.
I'm sorry,
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, Peter Hamill, the same thing. Van de Graaff generator. Peter Hamill and the sax player both were at Oundle, and it was rumoured that the headmaster had a little picture of Peter Hamill in his desk. So if any prospective parents turned up that looked like they might pay, like, pay, they look like here. Oh, this looks like a pair of hippies. Quick, get the picture out, put it on there. Yeah, he went here, you know. Yeah. But he was the one who I pissed in his dinner, so that fucked him off.
Oh, was that it? Okay.
Yeah, so,
You might as well tell that story now, haven't you?
What?
Really?
No, I've told it many times.
Have you?
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
All right.
How to piss in the headmaster's dinner and get thrown out. But of course, there was no evidence. He'd fucking eaten it.
Yeah.
Where was the evidence? I mean, if it was a court of law, I mean, and all over
I
biology.
think the evidence is right here, isn't it?
Where is the where is the DNA in piss? You know what I mean? I mean, there is none.
Find the DNA, surely. I mean, you just got to stick your fingers down his throat.
No, but there isn't any. There is no DNA in pee, you know, allegedly, and it's sterile, you know. So what's not to love, you know?
Do you think that, you know, you talk about pub rock? Does pub rock exist now?
No, I'll tell you what, I hated that. I hated that term.
Yeah. What does it mean?
I
pub rock,
I saw us as a rhythm and blues band. I mean, ultimately, we derive from the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
You know? And I used to think, we're playing rhythm and blues. And people used to go on about this pub rock. It was all around the world talking about pub rock.
Yeah.
And I said, actually, pub rock, it's not a kind of music.
Yeah.
You can't say to someone... If you say to someone rhythm and blues and they've got an idea what they're going to hear, right?
Yeah.
You say to someone pub rock, it could have meant anything. It was all
that's
different
right.
kinds of music.
Because I've wondered what it meant.
Because I was so strictly teetotal, I just objected to the word pub and I never did like that.
Yeah.
But you did like a bit of speed.
I did.
You did, yeah. I made up for it, didn't I? You know, I mean,
oh yes.
How did you get get on with speed? Because my only small dalliance with speed was when I was in this band called Samson, because I was always drinking beer. Well, the guitarist was a big stoner. I think the bass player had a little bit of white powder in his background, and our drummer used to like downers. So I was pissed, he was stoned, the bass player was speeding and the drummer was on downers. So 2 years of that, and I was ready for anything, you know. But we had a lighting tech, and he'd drive the 3-tonner, and then he'd take like 2 genie towers in the big flight cases, and somehow he'd hump them up like 3 flights of stairs to wherever the gig was, set it up, bang. And one night I went up to him and I said, mate, how do you do this and then drive the truck and do the next gig? And he went, easy mate, rocket fuel. I said, rocket fuel? He went, yeah. And he had a little bottle of liquid speed.
Oh, yeah.
And he put it in his tea and he'd be off. And I said, I like the sound of that. It sounds like Superman, mate. How does that work? He goes, I'll make you up a little cocktail. I said, what's that then? He said, I'll do 3 Dexys in the blue, start you off. So I went, go on then. I was up for 3 days.
Yeah.
I was up for 3 days. At the end of it all, I could not speak. I was like,
I used to do that regularly.
I did it once. It
really?
was
No. It was nothing for me to stay up over the whole weekend. Or
did you find it? I'm taking the piss here. Did you find it productive, or did you just do a lot?
As it happens, I up until recent years, I think I have never written a song except on amphetamine.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Because it makes you enthusiastic, right?
Yeah.
You think, I've got an idea.
But you don't strike me as being an unenthusiastic person.
No, I'm not. But I'm a very. I've always suffered from depression. Seriously, I get very, very miserable. And I found that amphetamine cheers you up.
Yeah, funny.
Other little helper. Yeah.
I tell you, I think once in Los Angeles, I stayed up for 7 days.
Holy moly.
Yes.
Was it Lemmy that said that he had this great quote? I think it was Lemmy. He said that like the third day on speed is the best one.
Yes,
because he said you've got a brain full of Rice Krispies.
No, that was the thing we used to say.
Was that you and Lemmy?
Where between us, the third day up was the best, and it is because you absolutely lost your mind.
Yeah,
you know, you just.
Yeah.
Did you find that? Was there any drop off as you got older?
What happened actually, I think, was yes, and also during the 80s and in the 90s, the speed started getting really disgusting. It was like you would get this stuff, and it was like putty. It was like you could almost wring it out,
right.
and it smelt like
why was that? Was that
armadillo's piss?
Right. Was that because everybody was concentrating?
I don't know.
Drugs,
it's just the way because in the 70s the stuff you used to get, it was pure white, pure white, and it would dissolve like that, bing, right, and you could put it in any way you want.
We haven't got any to demonstrate. Have
No.
we? No, we haven't got any. We haven't got any here to demonstrate.
No, it's strange. I mean, my only brief, association with it was that, once or twice, when I was like late teenager, jobbing with Samson, and I have to say, I was just like, because I'm fairly active sort of personality, and it just enhanced it. I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's it.
And I did it once, and I filled a notebook.
Yeah.
Front to back, filled a notebook. Then I lost it. No idea what crap I'd written in it. It might have been genius. Well, I know it might have been Shakespeare. Milton, Part 2.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it was. But generally, I would advise anybody against it.
Yeah.
I think I would too, actually.
You can't get stuff like that. Well, I suppose you can somewhere, but
well, you wrote a song recently, though, didn't you, Wilko? Wasn't it? You wrote a song called Marijuana, which is the opposite effect of.
Oh yeah, well, because I started out as a hippie in the '60s, right?
Right.
So the only drugs was LSD, and I'll tell you what, man, the acid. People don't know, LSD and cannabis. And I used to be quite contemptuous of speed freaks. There'd be speed freaks around, and they're giving it on, and I think, why do they do that, man? Why can't you just lay back, man?
Yeah.
These guys. Then when I found out what they were jabbering about, and it was good.
Yeah. Hello, folks. We hope you're enjoying Psycho Schizo Espresso. If you are, then why not head over to www.patreon.com/psychoschizoespresso, where if your brain can possibly take any more of me and Bruce, you can hear and watch unedited versions of our episodes, as well as gain access to exclusive episodes and content. Subscription will cost £4 a month, but you will definitely get more podcast and, dare I say, a little bit more oddcast for your money of me and Bruce talking ad infinitum about everything under the sun psychology related, much to the amazement and frustration at times of our long-suffering producer Adam. If you want to subscribe, folks, go to the bio of this episode, where you will find all the links you could possibly require to do so.
Yeah, the one we haven't sort of dealt. Did you ever do the whole ecstasy thing?
Yeah,
because that was it was kind of speed based.
It's just a form of amphetamine.
Yeah,
I remember just before that got going, a friend of mine. She was in New York, and she wrote to me about this stuff. Right,
yeah.
And I think that's right. And she sent something to me in a letter.
Right.
And then just about at the same time, friends of mine were involved with the first raves.
All right.
First big raves,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it started coming back.
Yeah.
Then, right.
Yeah.
Which it would have been what, 86, 87?
Yeah, it would have been mid-late 80s, wouldn't it?
Because I was in Amsterdam, right, and we were doing an album there, and I was actually staying. There was a studio in Hilversum, right? It was dead boring.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Oh, I've
boring.
been there. Yeah, Hilversum, radio
studios. Yeah. And the studios were there. So I was actually staying above a gay cinema in an old house in
Sounds Dutch.
right in the middle of whatever. And there were red light girls and everything. Yeah. And there was a couple, Barry and Yosha, and they had a design company in the 60s called The Fool. And they The Fool, right. So I've got a load of clothes from Yosha that I bought. She had a jumble sale. And she had stuff that she'd done for Jimmy Page and other jackets and things. And so I bought a load of this stuff. They had amazing kids, and they're quite eccentric. And Barry in particular had all kinds of weird and wonderful things. They kept, when I was living there doing the album, they came up and they said, oh, we've got this great stuff we'd like you to try. I said, I don't do drugs of any description really anymore. She goes, no, it's not like a drug. This just makes you love everybody. And I said, well, that sounds a bit weird. That there can't be there's something not right there. What is it anyway? And it was ecstasy, and that was the beginning of it. So that, presumably it was the same thing.
Yeah. It was. I remember what the pills looked like and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although it didn't always totally agree with me. You get bad ones on it, right? And it ain't quite like speed. It's more psychedelic than speed.
Right.
You do see colours and.
So a lot of cross between speed and LSD kind of thing.
Sort of. Yeah. I don't know, but it can make you feel very weird.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Very.
Does it matter what mood you're in to begin with when you take it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It just. I mean, when I was an acid head, it was. This were the days when you get liquid acid on sugar cubes, and that was fucking strong. And
liquid acid.
Oh yeah, used to go around this guy's house, this dealer, and he had you go, I want some acid. He said, I can give you 2 drops for 25 bob, right? And
5 bob.
Yeah. He went, and anyway, so the guy goes, he opens his fridge, and he gets an eyedropper bottle, right, which is all covered in silver paper. Right. I don't know, presumably it evaporates or something. Yeah. And he goes, 2 drops, 25. I'll go, well, that sounds good, okay. And he gets his sugar cube and puts a drop onto it. Yeah. Now, the thing is that this guy, he had the shakes, man. And it was the first time I'd ever bought acid, right? 2 drops of 25 bob. Oh, he gets his sugar cube. So I don't know how much went on there. Yeah. I was in for I won't bother trying.
That's £1.25.
Yeah.
Translate that.
Yeah, exactly.
25 bob.
25 bob.
Yeah.
£1.
25.
Yeah.
£1.25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wilko, look, I've got to ask you, I only know one Wilko. It's you, right? Do you know any other? Where did this name come from?
I can tell you, to my certain knowledge,
right,
there are at least 50 people in this world walking around with the first name Wilko on their passport.
Right. Where's it come from?
Yeah, where?
Wilko. Well,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We were in Helsinki years ago, before all this started.
Yeah.
So we're in Helsinki, and we've finished the gig, and this young fellow walks in, and he says, "Excuse me, I've just come to tell you, my name is Wilko, and that you've been named after me." And he said... he
said you'd been named after him?
No, he'd been named after him.
Oh, right, okay.
He said, my father was out there, the guy that had named him Wilko, and he said he was too shy to come in or something. Oh, right. And then I was going, oh, wow, I knew of several examples of people called Wilko around the world. You know, people write and tell me they go like New Zealand, Spain. Right. Anyway, Will is particularly good for Finns because it sounds Finnish. It's got that colour.
Yeah, I'll get it.
That,
Yeah,
right?
Where does it come from? Where does it come? Because I mean, obviously some people who name themselves after you. That's a but.
Yeah.
But you yourself and your name.
Yeah, well, it's quite simple. My name is John Wilkinson.
Right.
That's the name I was born with, or the name I was given.
Yeah.
And which I changed when I got into rock and roll. So
you just
everyone knows you call me Wilko, innit?
So you just invented Wilko.
Yeah, well, it's like if you call Wilkinson, people call you Wilko.
So it should be.
You get Wilko mints, can't you?
Yeah.
So you used to be John Wilkinson. So by rights it should be Wilko Johnkinson, but you're not.
No.
Would that be Swedish?
That would be. That's right. Yeah.
No. It's just a simple transposition.
Yeah.
Wilko.
I cut out
I thought.
Wilko Johnkinson.
And I thought, from being a sort of fairly commonplace proletarian name, it suddenly comes a little bit exotic.
It does, doesn't it?
And I've been happy ever since.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so where does, because I heard that you're really interested in astronomy as well.
Oh.
So, and is it right, you got a little kind of, mini observatory on top of your house?
I've got a dome on top of I've got a flat roof, my house.
Right.
And I've got a dome.
Yeah.
And I got this telescope. This telescope is so big. It's like is it 16 inch? It's huge.
Whoa.
It's the size of a dustbin.
Whoa!
Right. Now lately, when I went in hospital all that time ago, actually, it got kind of neglected, and been trying to get it going ever since. But I've got it going again now.
What I'm really interested in astronomy because it's one of those. It's absolute proof that our brains are kind of programmed to see pattern. So when you see the constellations, I mean, actually, when you just look at stars, there's no pattern in there at all. But over the centuries and millennia,
but actually, when you start getting used to them, right? You can identify the.
That's right.
The different constellations in the sky. They're all quite. Quite distinctive, you know.
Yeah. You can certainly make them out. Would you go into space if you were given the opportunity to go into space?
I remember back in the late 90s, when Richard Branson first started talking about doing it. And I was saying, I'll tell you what, I'll be quite old by then, 60 or something. And I thought, I'll tell you what, I would sell up everything for a ticket on that.
Would you?
Things just to go up, but no, I wouldn't do it.
It'd bit piss you off when you came down, though, wouldn't it?
Who knows? You'd
be homeless.
It's no, I wouldn't do it now.
William, the guy. Do you remember the TV series The Prisoner?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a bit of a fanboy about the TV series. So I went to stay in Port Merion where it was filmed. Yeah. Port Merion was built by a very eccentric English architect called William Clough Ellis. William Clough Ellis was another geezer that went to my school years ago, right?
What a school this one was.
Right?
Yeah, what a school.
Everyone. I didn't go there, did you, mate?
Chucked out of the best schools in England.
Yeah.
So William Clough Ellis went there, and he was very eccentric. So one of the things he did was he had built a harbour, a fake harbour, and he put a stone boat in there, which is very ironic.
Yeah.
But people could play on and stuff. Anyway, when he died, he had put quite a large chunk of money aside in his will to have a mega party on the beach in Port Merion, and his ashes were put into a gigantic as they could make it, firework, and fired off, boom, and exploded over the bay.
One way to go.
Way to go.
Well, going out with a bang, right?
Yeah,
literally.
Exactly. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So there you are. That's our mortal remains.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, so obviously, your interview, a lot of people talk to you about the cancer and how you come back from it and all that. And I've seen a few of the interviews Bruce has as well. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, obviously, you know, you're a very influential guitarist, influenced, you know, Paul Weller, Joe, all these people, you know that. When people talk to these days, a lot of the time they start talking about the illness and the cancer. Does it ever bother you in any way that, you know, actually, you know, you'd like to talk a bit more about the music?
Well,
do you feel like a bit scared?
I mean, obviously, at the time that was happening, that was absolutely the most fascinating thing about me.
Yeah,
you know, and that's why I was being interviewed on the news and whatever.
Yeah,
simply the fact that I had a terminal cancer, and that I wasn't going to do anything about it. I wasn't going to do chemo, or you know, I was going to die.
Yeah,
you know, and that's sort of interesting.
Oh yeah,
you know, and people want to talk about it. So talk about it.
Because you said, didn't you? That, I mean, I saw you talking about it. You said that, like, when you were given a diagnosis in the hospital, you come out and you was walking back to your house, and you had this. Bruce is a big William Blake fan.
Oh,
and you know, it almost sounded to me like you had almost like a Blakean experience.
Well, no,
you know, you had this.
I think the thing was, it was certainly. It was just strange. I mean, everybody must have asked themselves, you know, what would I do if I'm sitting looking at the doctor and he says, you've got cancer and there's nothing we can do. Right? Yeah. People think, what are you gonna think? Everyone's imagined that. Yeah. And yet, with me, I got this little lump coming out on my side.
Right.
About that big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Popping out there. Sometimes it would go away.
Right.
And I decided to treat it by ignoring it and hoping it would go away.
Yeah.
And then my son came to visit with his family, and he took one look at it. He said, "You're going to the hospital, right?" And he dragged me up to the hospital, and then the whole thing started.
Yeah.
And they'd I don't know, done some tests or something. But anyway, I remember going in one day, and there's the doctor there, and there's a sister standing there, and I was with my son and someone else, and the doctor says to me, "You've got this what does he say? You've got this mass on your pancreas." And I go, "Yeah, I know." And then he goes, "Unfortunately, we can't operate on this." And I thought, oh. He says, "You've got cancer." And I don't know, I suppose you imagine your photo pieces when you're anything like that. Yeah. I was absolutely calm. I mean, like, absolutely calm. And I was just thinking, so this is how it ends. Yeah. You know, but I wasn't freaked. I was calm. And walking home from the hospital, I remember walking out of the hospital, and it was a very beautiful winter's day with a kind of china blue sky, and the bare branches of the trees against the sky. And I remember I'm looking at it thinking, that's beautiful. And then looking round, and everything around me was like sparkling. And I'm walking home, and I'm thinking, well, I feel so high, I feel so good. And I'm thinking, this must be some kind of delayed shock. I'm probably going to get indoors and collapse like a bunch of broccoli. Yeah. But I didn't. It carried on, and that was the start of the best year of my life, probably.
I mean, what do you put it down to? Do you think? I mean, because I thought about it, and there's this wonderful experiment which was done in psychology a few years ago, where people were given a choice of whether to receive a painful electric shock now, or whether to kind of receive it in the future, like a few minutes later, or possibly not receive it at all. right? So he might get off it. And the majority of people chose to actually get it over with and have it now, even though if they put it off, they might not get it at all. And I've been thinking about this in relation to you, and what we crave is certainty. The human brain has a craving for
I mean,
certainty.
the thing was, I had certainty then. I was,
Yeah, that's right.
I was certainly going to die.
That was it, and that's right. So we're all working to a deadline, but we just don't know when our deadline is. But you all of a sudden did, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yes, and that was the thing. It was such an unusual year that it was fantastic.
So obviously, you know, when they told you that you had terminal cancer, it was pretty. Boom! There you go. That's it. I mean, it's what happened when they told me I had throat cancer. You know, I was like, oh, that's how you do it then. You know, it's not sugar coated. It's like bam. You know, but how was it when you got told, and how did you find out that not that they'd made a mistake, but they'd sort of missed?
Well, it went. It was all in the news. It was in the New York Times. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. But that's the
only
newspaper
the
saying
second
that.
time I've been in the New York Times.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good career move, the old cancer, isn't it, Wilko?
No, but so it's well known.
Yeah.
And then we realised. I swiftly did a farewell tour.
Yeah.
When we first knew about it, got through that. Think, I hope I'll live long enough to do this. And then when it was summertime to come in, we can do festivals. That's really great because if you fall down dead, it's not going to stop no festival. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I thought, great. So we booked in some festivals, and one of them was Cornbury Festival.
Oh, just down the road with me.
Yeah, and it was really good because Van Morrison was topping the bill, and it was really good because I see Van and I could say goodbye to him, you know, and things like that.
Right.
And so we're anyway doing this festival, and at this festival, there's this little guy running. He's running around, man, taking photographs. Right, Chinese guy. His name is Charlie Chan. Right? And he's whizzing about, and I must have been talking to him a bit about that. Anyway, it transpires that he is in fact a cancer surgeon, right? And I think we've been obviously talking about my condition, but he didn't say nothing. And then time went by. They got a chair for me to sit at the front, in front of the stage, and Van Morrison was on, and he was singing that song, "Precious Time Is Slipping Away."
Yeah.
And I'm saying, oh man, it feels so good. It just sounded great. It was a beautiful day, and this Van doing his stuff. But yeah, some precious time is slipping away, but not bad. And anyway, time goes on, and it's getting towards the end of the year, towards Christmas, and Charlie Chan turns up at my house, and he's come in and he said, listen, I've got doubts about your condition. He said, because if you were diagnosed with pancreatic cancer back in January, you should be dead now, man. Or if not dead, you should be very, very ill. But I was still walking about, albeit with a big lump.
Yeah.
And he said to me, I want you to go and see my friend Emmanuel Huguet. Now, Mr. Huguet is in fact the chief transplant surgeon at Adam Brooks Hospital. He said, I want you to go and see him. And so I went to see Mr. Huguet, and we're sitting there, and he's like, I was sitting there listening to him talk, and I think, is this guy telling me he can save my life? And I think, yes he is. And it was just that, and he said yes, that they'd looked at the all the scans and that where it all started, and it was a not normal kind of pancreatic cancer. In fact, it was the same pancreatic cancer that killed Steve Jobs. Right, it was that, and this kind of cancer is in fact treatable. And if Steve Jobs hadn't tried to cure himself with potato salad or whatever he was doing,
he'd be alive.
Yes, they could cure it. But anyway, so there's a big thing. So Mr. Hugo's, we've gone in to see him, and I remember I was walking out of there, he was saying, yes, we think we can do this. It's going to be a big, major operation. Very serious. They're going to have teams of transplant surgeons standing by in case they need to do, and it's going to be massive. It was a 13-hour operation.
Wow.
And anyway, we had this meeting, and I said, okay, I agree, I'll do it. I'm going to die in a couple of months. And walking out of there, and I was laughing my head off because I thought, this is just crazy. I've been through this whole year of this thing, and suddenly this Superman has come in and he said, I can do the job, and it was like, if you wrote that in a script for a soap opera, people would blow it out and say, no, this is too improbable.
Yeah.
And I was just laughing, thinking, God, I've been through a year of thoroughly expecting to die, and now this man's coming and saying, no, you can live.
So when he cut it out and you went back to the land of the living, Wilko, I mean, and then you presumably, you had a lot of rehab and a lot of recovery and you came back to like normal. I mean, that must have taken a bit of getting used to and all, wouldn't it?
Well, the thing is, like, to say with cancer, when you get it, the doctor, that's a sudden shock.
Yeah.
Right? But if you've been through if you're cured and all that ain't no stuff. That takes months.
Yeah.
Like I was lying in hospital like for I don't know, it's weeks and weeks and weeks. And I mean they'd taken my pancreas, half of my stomach, my spleen, a length of my gut, and a whole lot of giblets come out, and I'm lying in. I was lying in hospital, and it's good. They got this button, right?
Oh yeah.
You spray it for morphine, and and it allows you to, like, it regulates it. It allows you to squirt some morphine in, right? And then it stops. You have to wait for another 15 minutes. I mean, it's great. But I was staying there, lying there in a stupor for a long time, and then when I finally got home, that was months. I was very, very weak, very thin.
So, I mean, obviously, Wilko, you'd have heard of this in psychology. There's this thing called mindfulness. You must have heard of this, where you're like, it's living in the moment and all that kind of thing, and people train to do it. But I mean, you did it the hard way, didn't you? Because like when you was given that diagnosis, you really were living in the moment. It wasn't about the past or the future. It was very much about the present.
Well, exactly. It was. You have to. I don't know. Get some kind of mindset. For dealing with it. Of course, you go for all sorts of things, like, of course, it's 3 o'clock in the morning when you are just full of fear.
Yeah.
I remember once, actually, it's the middle of the night, and I'm lying in bed, and I'm looking at my big telly, and it's Alan Partridge. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And there was just one scene, right, and the thing was, I was feeling the bad one. I was feeling the fear of death.
Yeah.
And lying there. And then this scene happened, I started laughing, right? And I was laughing and laughing until I was crying. I was doubled up, laughing and crying. But at the same time, I could feel the fear.
Yeah.
It was like,
wow.
Yeah. So it's really, when you wake up in the morning and you got that, it's the first, I suppose it's the first thing you think of, isn't it? It's always there, right?
I think 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Before you remember.
Yeah.
I think, I'm going to die.
What we've decided is we thought we're going to start up a little petition, haven't we? And Bruce used to be a pilot, still do a bit of flying, don't you, Bruce?
I think I forget my medical back, yeah.
That's right, yeah. Now, the first airport, if I'm right, you better explain this, the first airport that you were based in or something?
I got a job as a commercial pilot, flying airliners, at the age of sort of 39, 40, right? So right at the ragged end of where most people started, 25. So there I was, and it was a sort of a thing I'd always wanted to do. But my first job as an airline was with a company called British World Airlines. And British World were based at Southend. And they used to be Silver City Airlines in 1946 or something, or whenever, a long time ago. And then they were British United, they were British Air Ferries.
That's it, BAF,
right. But it was all the same company, basically. And they bounced from one bankruptcy to another bankruptcy. Yeah. They lurched from summer to winter, and then just about back to summer again, for over years and years and years, you know. Anyway, I got a job with them at Southend Airport. Southend Airport was my base. So I used to go to sort of like the funny little matchstick castle place, Viscount House, and go and do all my checks and bits and bobs, and have bacon sarnies in the caff there. You know, all the cops used to turn up doing their blue light training, like whizzing around the streets of Southend with their blue lights on. So, and I got to know the airport director. Yeah. And at one point, but we thought that Southend Airport, it's a cool little airport. It's got a funny little thing.
Actually, it's a big, beautiful modern airport now with a Holiday Inn and a built-in stuff.
No, Holiday Inn. And
I know what it used to be like. I mean, we hired planes with Feelgoods, right, back in the 70s. And there's one time I've had a go at flying a plane. We had a Handley Page Heron, right, 4 engines, right.
Jesus!
Yeah.
Wow, that is that is rare.
Yeah. Anyway, so we
don't get him started on planes.
No. That is rare. Heron.
A heron.
Oh God, there's only one. There's only Guernsey.
Used to be,
Jersey. There used to be one in Jersey European Airlines colours. I think it's, don't know where it is.
Yeah.
Now,
anyway, this is a hire company, right? They come out of Biggin Hill.
Yeah.
Right. And
I'm jealous.
Look at it, 4 engines, right? This thing. And when we get up in the sky. We're all a bit excited, you know, because what we're really happening now, we're hiring plane. We had to fly to south of France for a festival, and the first thing I'm looking back and I see the pilot. He's coming out of his door, right? Yeah. You know, his hat and everything like that, and he's having a sniff. I think, right, so I think these guys are live ones, right? And those are the things, right? He's going one of them, he wants a piss, right? So they just open the door, right? And they're pissing out of the door. We thought it's really good, right? So they're tooting coke and pissing out the door and all that, and then. It's
probably why you don't see the heron very often featured in documentaries.
No, they used to be the what was called the Queen's Flight. Yeah. And I can remember when I was a kid that always said, Her Majesty arrived on a heron of the Queen's Flight.
Yeah.
And this thing, anyway, we'd done this festival, which was great. It was a big festival, Avignon. And the next day, we're going to fly back, and everyone's heading out to this plane. I'm going back, so I sit in the front, right? So I sat in the front with the pilot and put all the
gear on,
stuff on, and that. And then he says, right, when I tell you, pull the stick back. I went, what? And he started the thing, and he's going, okay. And I pulled the stick back, and I took it off, and I'm terrified. It's going up and up and up. And look around the guy's looking around at his maps and stuff. He's not bothered, you know. So I've flown a plane.
Yeah, brilliant.
Well, you know what, Wilko? So Bruce was saying, like, it was his first base was Southend Airport.
Yeah,
right.
I got a bit of a soft spot for the place.
Yeah.
You know?
And when we knew we was coming down to talk to you today, we was having a little chat, and we thought, you've got George Best Airport in Belfast, right? Yeah. You got John Lennon Airport in Liverpool. What about a Wilko Johnson Southend Airport?
It's got to be better than Eddie Stobart, hasn't it? Yeah. You know what I mean?
So Bruce had an idea. We're going to start off a little petition. We're going to start one off. We're going to try and get a Wilko Johnson Southend Airport.
Wilko Johnson. Wilko Johnson.
How does that sound,
Southend, I think.
Well, because I would have to be dead, really, for this to happen. So,
well, I don't know. No, we want you to open it. We want you to cut the ribbon.
They don't name things after living people. Even John Lennon.
Well, that's true. He's dead.
And Swagger into Southend Airport now, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to try and start up a little project. We're going to try and do it for you, Wilko. We'll see how far we get.
Okay,
mate.
okay.
But if we get it, you're going to open it, all right?
We did have a discussion about whether or not it should be Wilko Johnson Airport, Southend, or whether it should be Southend Feelgood Airport. But then we thought that the Feelgood thing, the trouble is, the Feelgood thing is that there's a bunch of people masquerading as the Feelgoods at the moment. It's not Feelgoods anymore.
It always has been.
Yeah.
Some
It's an
are quite
interesting...
good, actually. Some of them better than the current...
I didn't know
Dr.
this.
Phil.
Well, actually, Bruce, it's true, because I didn't know that there is a band called Dr Feelgood, and they're still playing.
There's quite a few in this country and everywhere, right? And one of them, at least, is actually pretty good.
Right.
I remember seeing them down the railway in Southend, right? And they were playing. It was just like the sound they were making and what they were doing. The singer had a bit of a and it was just like we would have been in the London pubs. And I remember standing looking at it, thinking, oh wow! I felt like
Christ,
I felt like I was looking at Dr Feelgood back then.
It must have been their worst nightmare. They're Dr Feelgood, and in walks Wilko Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Well, I've got to say, this has been one of the most entertaining evenings that I've had ever since they let me out of lockdown. Great to see somebody who was a legend for me when I was growing. I mean, I'm not far behind you, but nevertheless, it was still one of those the Feelgoods and Wilko Johnson and everything. When I was still thinking about the idea of playing in pubs, maybe that's an aspiration. I was like, yeah, just like them, yeah. But he must be mad. He looks mad, And actually, you're not at all.
Yeah.
And I know that because he's a psychologist. He's told me.
We'll have words later.
Yeah, we're going to stop before we start singing Delilah.
I think so. Cheers, Wilko.
The Alex Harvey version, of course. Well, yet another episode, yet another hour of your life and our lives, which I hope has enlightened and entertained you. Obviously on Psycho, Schizo, Espresso, and there's a lot more to come. But I have to mention Psycho, Schizo, Espresso is a Prod production. And please make sure that you like, subscribe, or leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can get in touch with us by emailing us at pse@podprod.co.uk, and there's the hashtag as well, hashtag Psycho Schizo Espresso. And don't forget, you can now become a Patreon, which means you get behind the firewall, as it were, and you get to lift our skirts up and have a look at what's going on underneath, extended episodes and some special things that me and Kevin might do together. If you want to do that, at www.patreon.com/Psycho Schizo Espresso for all the unedited and unfiltered episodes, as well as extra bonus